Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. You all are going to be so informed today. You're going to walk away with practical tips on how to help your children have digital wellness. Chris McKenna is joining me from Protect Young Eyes. His journey with protecting children in the area of technology started in 2014, and it has grown into an absolute movement. Over 250,000 children have gone through his process for digital wellness. And he just got back from the White House. There's so much going on in this area, and we know it's a priority for parents to be able to talk to their children and be informed around the area of technology. Here's why I think this conversation is so critical. One is AI is here. We have to understand it as parents, what's going on in the classroom, what's happening with our children in terms of education. Also, apps and chat rooms are just absolute open doors for darkness, and they're moving so fast. There's so many ways that kids are getting connected to really predators. So the conversation, it has to be critical, and it has to be central in your family. We have to be talking to kids about technology. So Chris is going to help us with some facts, with some tips, and with ways to take action as parents. So let's lean in and be informed. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. I cannot wait for this conversation.
Well, it's going to be a long one because I have so many questions. I love what you're doing. Have been following you for a while. And I love that it's both, there are facts and so many practical tips for parents.
Excellent.
And so I'm excited to get into the conversation. But before we do, will you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll hear about Protect Young Eyes?
You bet. Yeah. So Andrea and I have been married now for 26 years. Both of us are born and raised and entire lives here in Michigan, the land of the hand, and really enjoy it here. I live near Grand Rapids in West Michigan, for those listening to this who are familiar with the state. We have 4 children. My daughter is entering her junior year of college. Then I have 3 boys who are rising 8th, 9th, and 10th graders.
Wow.
So a lot going on there with busyness and extracurricular. I have a set of twins who are in different grades. Those are my older 2, the 9th and the 10th grade. And one of those was born with Down syndrome. So there's a lot going on in there that's incredibly fun, and every day something a little bit new. And at some point you may hear one of them in the background wanting dad for something, because that's just what life is in the summer, if you happen to be listening to this right now. But that is the personal side of me. And Protect Young Eyes is something, Suzanne, I never expected to be doing. I don't know if you dreamed of being a podcaster one day, but I didn't dream of this.
I did not.
You did not. Yeah, that's not what you put down on that sort of skills assessment that maybe you took in middle school.
That's right.
Right? In mine, what's strange about that is in 8th grade, and I'm still connected to my English teacher who I did this with, Mrs. Soul. We still trade messages on Facebook. She pinned me as an accountant in 8th grade. That's what she wrote on the top of that. And that's actually what I thought I would be doing. I did for 12 years. I'm a CPA by trade and background, and went into consulting and worked in the business world until the Lord called me into full-time ministry. And I left that, went into the church, and then spent about 7 years working with junior high. And that's when I watched us from 09 to 16 put the internet in kids' pockets. And that felt like a really bad idea to me. As a young boy exposed to pornography, I compulsively used pornography for years and struggled with that until Christ and accountability pulled me out of that pit. And then I watched us put that monster in kids' pockets. And it felt like a bad idea. I was unsettled about that, and launched a website in 2015 called protectyoungeyes.com, and just started to educate and help parents. And now here we are, a year and a half into doing this full time now. I have a team of presenters. We travel now even internationally to speak in schools and churches.
Wow.
With courses and education. And we just want to make it as practical as possible, because what you didn't hear in any of that is I don't have a computer science degree. I'm not a tech guy. I didn't work in Silicon Valley. I am a dad bumbling and stumbling through the digital age. Andrea and I trying to figure this out with kids just like all of you listening to this. And I firmly believe that each of you have digital superpowers, and we just want to find them. We just want to give you that calm and that confidence to do some really practical things. And that's what we want to do. And I hope we can do that today together.
That's all. I'm so excited about the practical tips because I just think parents are so hungry for them. I mean, there's a lot about, make sure you've got the safety things on the computer and all, but there's so much more that can be done and so many conversations that need to happen. You know what I find so fascinating about what you just shared is that this started in 2014 and 15. And we sort of look back and think, oh my gosh, been this explosion of trouble and problem in the past 5 years since COVID. Sort of everything technical tends to sort of we go back and say this all happened, in the past 5 years. And yet you've been doing this for a decade. And so I'm curious as to what you've seen, sort of the progression of it. And if you could say just one thing from the beginning, we're going to go into a lot of details, but if you had to tell parents one thing and you only got one tip or one heads up, you could only say one thing, what would that one thing be?
Trust none of it. None of it was designed for our children. Absolutely none of it, Suzanne, was crafted with a young human's needs, wants, desires, awesomeness, vulnerabilities in mind. In fact, it was made with their vulnerabilities in mind, but to exploit them instead of prevent them. That is the digital world that has been constructed. And there's a lot of complicated reasons why it was constructed that way. It's actually, this will sound so cliche, it's the government's fault. But we are living in the aftermath of 26 words that were passed as law in 1996, the Telecommunications Decency Act, CDA 230, the 26 words that built the internet, which removed liability, which created this path for innovation. And now here we are, 29 years later, still suffering from those 26 words because nobody can sue and hold anybody accountable for the bad decisions they've made. They're all the right decisions for profit. They're none of the right decisions for our kids. And that's the problem. So until the incentives change, until the enforcement changes, trust none of it. That's what I would tell parents.
That is so powerful and it's so true. Like you, I'll tell you one little quick story. But I was speaking to a group of young moms, probably I don't know, it's probably about 8 years ago, and I was on a little panel. Someone had invited me to be on this panel, and at the end of talking about just parenting, this mom raised her hand and she said, she didn't really ask a question. It was a Q&A, but she made a statement, and she said, I've listened to you, and I'm not sure I feel comfortable giving my fifth grader an iPhone for fifth grade graduation. And I had a friend on the panel who grabbed my leg, like, don't launch, calm down, take a deep breath. And I said, I'm so sorry, that wasn't really a question. Do you have a question? And she said, do you think I should not do that? I said, well, you already know, trust the Holy Spirit. You already know that that's not a good idea. But literally in the area that I live in, fifth grade graduation was every child got an iPhone. And I remember going home thinking to myself, okay, what is the response to that? And the response that I've come up with over the years is, unless you're ready to talk about porn at the dinner table, not a good idea. I mean, you're literally handing. That was sort of my introduction into, wow, how widespread this really is. And this has been years ago. And so I think that even desiring to trust the phone or any screen, why are we using that to babysit? Why are we doing that? And so I love the fact that just trust nothing is so huge. So I want to get in really to some of the ages and some of the stats and some of the facts that you have. Am I correct in saying that the average age for children, maybe just boys, but I think it's children, to see porn for the first time is 8 years old?
So, Suzanne, there are so many different statistics and numbers and studies that give an age, whether it's 8 or 9 or 10. The way that I often answer that question is this: whether the number is 8 or 9 or 10,
right?
Can we all just agree that's the wrong number? Like, that's a bad number. It's a horrible number. And so it's important to communicate that there's almost nothing that prevents 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds or 10-year-olds from seeing pornography unless we do some very intentional things. We live in a very frictionless society. We used to live in a society that had a lot of friction that existed between children and harm, whether it was physical friction, like you couldn't physically get there. I
That's a great
couldn't
way to
get
put
to
it.
the store. I couldn't get to a place. I couldn't get to where there was harm, or there was relational friction where I didn't know that person. I wasn't connected to that stranger. And again, there were physical, there was all kinds of distance that existed between me, little old Chris McKenna in Bath, Michigan, and things that could radically change the trajectory of my childhood. None of that friction exists anymore. None of those gaps and spaces exist anymore. The distance between every child and life-changing digital experiences is now razor thin, unless we do very intentional, practical things. And so it's too young. And as
Right.
parents, I guess what I want us to just quickly grapple with is that's just the way it is. Like I hear parents who I think sometimes are like, oh, yeah, it's hard to raise kids. And I look at them and say, you're right. But if you, this is going to sound so harsh, and I don't intend it
No.
to be. If we are going to have children in 2025, this is just part of the gig. Like
This is parenting.
this
Right?
is parenting. There's no more utopia and just riding bikes around the neighborhood in 1980 and going to the park and swinging on trees. Okay, I want us to do all those things, but know that all those things now come with a friend who has Pornhub in their pocket. Like we just
Slumber party,
have to,
all of it.
we just have to, this is now what comes with it. And so we have to parent differently. We have to equip differently, and we've got to do some uncomfortable things.
Yeah, I love just continuing to share with parents, and I've said this on a couple of other episodes. Jesus is the comforter. We would not need Jesus the comforter if we didn't do uncomfortable things. If life wasn't uncomfortable,
That's right.
Parenting is hard. Pick your heart. Is it hard to say no? Is it hard to, make things, give things to children a little bit later than their friends? Yes, all that's hard. It's not fun to have your kids roll your eyes and slam doors or do whatever they're going to do in response to that. But it's a lot harder to have a child who's addicted and has to overcome something for the rest of their life. And so
That's
it's
right.
pick your heart, really, right?
It is. It is. And that's there's a lot of sinister aspects to this, Suzanne. But one of them that I think we as parents need to admit is an impulse to want our children to be happy is not bad. Parents want their children to be happy and to have a great childhood and to experience amazing, fun things. Like, there's not a bad impulse. The problem is we now have something that always makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost as if the device and the iPad and Fortnite, these provide a weaponization of our good impulse. And
Wow,
it
that's a
makes
great
our
way to put
kids
it.
happy all the time. And that's the problem, because that's one of the reasons it's so easy. There are others, like collective action of all kids doing it, but it makes our kids happy. And so it's difficult to say no to it. And so again, sort of a harsh reality today is we're really not that responsible for our children's happiness. Like, that's not the end game here.
That's not the goal, right?
No, the goal is holiness. And so are we making digital decisions that point our children toward holiness or happiness? Because there's a big difference between those two paths.
So powerful. Well, let's talk, because you are offering practical tips, and there are a few things that I've seen or heard you say that I'd love to bring up, but I want you to share some of the practical things that you're giving parents to do and to take action. One is 10 before 10. I think that is so brilliant. It's so easy. I don't even have kids at home. I don't have any 10-year-olds, and I've got 10 before 10 on my brain.
I
Such
love
an
it.
easy way to remember. So can you walk us through that one? There are a couple of others that I'll bring up, but there may be some
Sure.
that you just want to share that will be helpful for parents.
You bet. So I'm a framework guy, and this is because professionally I was a CPA and a consultant. So to me, if I can hook an idea to a framework, then at that 50,000 foot level, it just kind of makes sense. It's not this sort of orbiting moon that doesn't have anything that it's attached to. So we teach a framework of 5 habits whenever we talk to parents. And the 10 before 10 is kind of hooked to one of those. So habit number 1 is to model the right behaviors, right? It starts with us. Then we pursue authentic connection. We encourage work and play. We diligently prevent harm, and we delay addictive technologies. So what you're talking about in 10 before 10 is this building authentic connection with our kids through conversation about hard topics. So pornography being a hard topic, it's one that we probably, as kids who are now parents, when we were kids, we probably weren't shown by boomer or older Gen X parents even how to have that conversation, because we frankly didn't have it. We didn't know. But now, again, what comes with the gig is we have to. And so kind of being a numbers guy, and the real seed of this idea comes from a fellow Michigander. So Ginny Urich, some of your listeners may also know the 1,000 Hours Outside, right?
Yes.
That's her movement, her podcast. She's also here. She's over on the east side of the state. I'm over here on the west side. And it was this making it a number so that it's memorable and sticky. And I was out for a run. That's often where the Lord says, do these things, or here's the idea. And it was, we need a number for this to make parents feel like I have something that I can kind of strive toward. And so that's where it came from, is 10 before 10. How do we have 10 conversations that equip our children for the issue of pornography before age 10? And I phrase that a certain way because it's not, we don't have to say porn 10 times and check the box. Like, that's not, I think when you hear that, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to my 9-year-old about all, no, it's, you can have extremely effective conversations that equip your kids to handle pornography without even saying the word. Or it doesn't, sometimes I'll joke in our presentations, it doesn't have to be elegant. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You don't need a PowerPoint. You don't need research. They don't need to clap when you're done. Like, that is not what is going on here. You are just dripping these little nuggets in these windows of opportunity: car time, meal time, bedtime, together time, just little nuggets, little invitations that make them know that you know, and you're creating these bridges of digital trust where they can talk to you. They know how to handle things. That's what 10 before 10 is supposed to communicate. Not some Old Testament legalistic, check the box, I got to say certain things 10 times or my kid's going to be addicted to porn. That's not the point. Because the risk is almost always, I don't do it enough instead of I do it too much. That's why I try to attach something quantitative. So that's the spirit behind it.
It's just great. I remember, with my son, I remember really when that conversation started to come up, it was a highly relational conversation. Someone who is in the porn industry is someone's daughter, is someone's mother, is someone, just trying to give him a real picture of people. And, it was so powerful. Right. Somebody's sister. You have 2 sisters, and so I wasn't having the porn talk. I was just talking to him about being a human and the humanness of other people. And I think sometimes, like you said, we get this like, oh my goodness, I've got to actually use the word porn and say all the things. And it's really like, how are we human here? Yeah. And again, holiness. So I love that though, because I do think it helps parents frame the fact that by the age of 10, they're going to see something, be exposed to something. Let's help them to know what that is.
Yeah, that's right.
I was at a conference, and I was sitting with a family, and they were asking questions about when do we have conversations about sex, and I said yesterday. That's always been yesterday. You have conversations. How old are your kids? 4. Yesterday, and I think their child was maybe 10 and had no conversation yet. And I'm like, someone's going to have the conversation. Right. And whoever has it first is usually the person that they cling to with trust. So be the person to get out front of that.
Yeah, or at least that first one is going to be the one that establishes a baseline of truth that is either going to be something you're continually trying to undo, or you can be that baseline that they're comparing everything else to go, nope, that's distorted and different than what I've been told. So, right. So we need to be the lead. Absolutely. The authority. When it comes to something like this, because a kid is going to, shame is not an adult only issue. A kid who
That's right.
encounters this kind of thing is automatically going to have a lot of conflict going on around, am I going to get in trouble? Did I do the wrong thing? All those little lies. And that's natural for a kid to feel that way. So our repetition, our voice, us engaging the front of their brain when the back emotional part of the brain is saying, don't, and I'm going to get in trouble. Have we said enough that they know in the front of the brain, because it's rote and practice, for them to overcome that? So they'll come to us, because a 10 before 10 isn't just the talking about it. It's the practicing it and doing it. Kids need the physical. They don't think abstractly yet. They need the concrete.
Right.
And so if you're saying to your kid, yeah, if you see something, I need you to come and kind of show me that and let's chat about it. That's incomplete if you haven't also taken the step of, okay, now I'm going to go up in the bedroom and I'm going to have you sit at the kitchen table with the Chromebook. And from upstairs, I'm going to yell, go. And I want you to close the Chromebook, put it down. I want you to walk upstairs and knock on the door, tell someone. We say that all the time. Put it down, tell someone.
That's so great.
And I want you to say it to me. So they now have practiced it. It's that gross motor even side of it in a little body that is so important. So they know, because otherwise what they'll do in that moment they see it is go, well, do I say something now? Mom looks busy. Can I go into a room and talk about it? You break through all of that through the practice by making it concrete.
That's incredible. That just incredible. I hope every parent took notes on that and practice tonight. Like, go, run, don't walk.
Yeah, yesterday.
Okay, so tell me. Yeah, yesterday. Do it yesterday. Here's another one. The 7-day rule.
The 7-day rule. Love it. That's an old one. We've been doing that one a long time. So this is where trust none of it, because you'll go to the App Store and you'll see the app's rating is 4+, or you'll read the description. So again, we have to remember the incentives. The incentives of Apple's App Store, or the incentives in Google Play's store where you download for Android, are not to inform parents around how well this app will interact with children. The bottom line goal of the App Store is to get you to download it. It's a marketing engine. That's what it is. Why? Because Apple and Google both make a profit cut of in-app purchases, right? So the incentives here, and I know this is kind of businessy for a minute, but this is what we have to remember, is that when we go to an app store and we read that a kid's game app is rated 4+, that incentive is to get us to download it, not to be accurate with that rating necessarily, not to communicate to me that there are ads inside of the app that are different than the rating and could lead my kid toward gambling or girls or games or something outside, right? So downloading it ourselves, we as parents need to download it. Every single app our kids want to use. I don't care what Disney princess is on the front of it. You use that app for 7 straight days, and not just download it and set it aside. You set it up with a profile that is the same age as your child. Interact with it like your child, and do that for 7 days. And ask yourself, would you want your child experiencing all the things that you just did, seeing all the things that you just did, seeing the ads that you did? What happens on level 4 that doesn't happen on level 1? Does it have any kind of in-game chat? Do you feel sort of maybe the risk of addiction that a kid might get pulled in? Does it have in-app purchasing? Does it have little, things that would be bad for your kid? Experience all of that long before you give it to your child. Because again, the App Store's incentive isn't to protect your child. It's to download the app. That's it.
So practical. Just so practical to actually walk through it and play what they play and do what they do. Just incredible. I mean, it seems like common sense, but it takes time. And I always say, the sacrifice of discipleship is time, right? All of this takes time. To really be well informed, and informed parents make informed decisions. So to be informed, you have to sacrifice time, walk through it, or else just don't do it.
That's right. And even after you've said yes, remember, parents, it's not their app and it's not even their device. You're still doing it with them. So even after the 7 days, one of the most important principles that we teach, and it's the very end of our presentations that we do with parents, is parent-led device ownership. No child owns the device that is in the home. Everything is owned by you. And so that means even after the app is downloaded that you're checking your device and you're using your device and you're using that app with your child often. And again, this comes back to the time, but it's part of the gig. This is just part of the gig. And this is, what it takes. And so the 7 days isn't just I'm signed off and done at the end of my 7 days. Now you've earned the right almost of using the app with your kid. Now that you've used it, now you get to use it with them and interact with them. And, again, building those bridges of digital trust, which is a part of habit number 2 with that connection. So.
Awesome. Okay, tell me this. I heard you speak about this, the router being the most important.
It is.
What do parents need to know about the router?
Preach it, Suzanne. You've got it. I love it.
I love it. I mean, it's just so practical.
Yeah. So the only thing better than one framework is putting a framework inside of a framework. So we have our 5 habits, but then, and I recently just posted about this for those of you listening who are familiar with Jonathan Haidt and The Anxious Generation, which I'm sure many of you have read. I just published an article through his website, his Substack called After Babel, and it goes through what I'm about to describe. That was very specific to pornography, which some of you may find very informative, but we have habits. These are behaviors, ongoing behaviors that we want homes to have. But then at a very practical level, there are layers of protection that we wrap around our children. Again, 5 layers of protection. The relationship is the first layer, but the router is the second layer. The device is the third layer, things we do on devices. Location is the 4th layer. We only use technology in certain places. And then the apps themselves, like YouTube and Snapchat and TikTok, have different controls, and all 5 layers are necessary. But that router layer, especially for younger children, is by far the most critical layer, because almost every digital device used by young children depends on Wi-Fi. They don't have SIM cards. They don't have a cell plan yet, right? You think of Chromebooks and tablets and smart TVs, which are really just big smartphones hanging on the wall, and iPads, which are really just big iPhones. These are all Wi-Fi dependent. The only way that anybody has access to the internet and 100 million choices and 100 million people is through that router. The router does what it says it does. It takes that signal from the wall and it routes people on different devices, kind of like a traffic cop with signals in the street, and gets them to the internet. So if you control that thing, you control their access to the internet, like a lock on a door or a lock on a window. That's what it does. And the right router can do things that help you as a parent, where you don't have to be checking devices all of the time because you have something that is filtering the content before it even gets to the device. That even if a child is trying to search for something that's inappropriate or violent or mature, that the device is preventing that. Now, I also want us to be inspecting those devices so that, getting back to the relationship, we can talk about the heart reason why those things are happening. But in terms of preventing the harm, that's what the device is so necessary. It satisfies kind of the technicals. Every digital situation has both a relational and a technical component. It's almost like you could attach Old and New Testament to even that kind of thinking. There's sort of a truth side and a grace side. There's the things that are just kind of black and white that we need in place, like filters and controls and that. But they also need the relational side of let's work through this and so forth. So the same is true with our technology. And the router is just one of those just truth side. This is what we have in place. Every home needs to have a router with controls or some way that the Wi-Fi is controlled. And that's not just a little kid thing. This is also a big kid thing.
That's a great point.
And the reason for that is twofold. Control and culture. Control from the standpoint of, I don't want secret devices brought into my house either. Now, I speak very openly about this with my own boys, and they know my stance on it. But if they were to ever bring in a burner phone, because kids hand around old iPhones like crazy, or some secret device, I get a notification on my phone, even if they know the password to my router, that a new device with a new Mac ID is trying to use my home internet. So there's no ability to use a secret unknown device when I've said, I'm taking your iPhone away, whether through punishment or your time is up. If a friend has handed them an old iPhone 12 that still works on Wi-Fi, which they all do, you can't use it in my home. That's the control side.
That's incredible.
The culture side is when a buddy comes over, and this is a real situation, and brings his Xbox to our house. We don't have an Xbox, but my friend's son does, and he goes to connect. Again, I get a notification. Then I can walk downstairs and say to the boys, hey, Jacob, I just let your Xbox in. You're trying to get to Xbox Live. I'm sure to download a game. That's great. I know Cole gave you the password. That's how you're able to do that. I love it that you guys are going to play and do this together. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. But I know these things. That's the culture. The culture of our home is open, transparent discussions about technology. So from a teenager's perspective, to me, what was most important wasn't the control. It was the fact that I could have that conversation with them.
That's right.
That was the most critical part of it. It just is a benefit that I can now turn off the Xbox with my router whenever I want. But the fact that I could go down, connect with them, build a little digital trust, be curious about what they were playing, because then I can ask about it later, that was the gold. And that's all from the router. Who knew that your router?
Yeah, I know. It blew me away when you started to talk about it. I'm like, wow, that's an incredible viewpoint that I don't think a lot of people talk about.
No.
So
that was actually the thing that Jonathan Haidt and his team were most interested in me expanding on in that post. Was they had never had anybody in the time that the anxious generation has been out kind of explore that side of things, and it's so critical.
Well, let's shift a little bit and talk. I'd love to ask you, what apps do you think are the most dangerous apps? Like you're like, absolutely no way, don't think about it, don't touch it. Are there any that you're just like, don't go there because of what you know or what you have found out about them?
So different apps prey on different vulnerabilities in children.
Okay, great way to put it.
There are apps that focus on certain things that when you know your kid and you know what the app does, you go, oh, never, never, never. Right? So, you could say that a kid with a very high dopamine reward system, because you've watched them struggle to put down video games or struggle with screen time, they're going to struggle mightily with TikTok, which is just a dopamine engine. And they're never going to be able to put down those videos, and that algorithm is going to figure them out in a hot second and feed them most addictive stuff. They'll never be able to put it down, right? So if you can do that kind of math as a parent and figure out what's best. But like overall, if I could eradicate Snapchat from teen lives, I would. Like at the 50,000 foot level, because of what I know about the adolescent brain, which the adolescent brain is highly impulsive, highly curious, and spontaneous. We love that about the adolescent brain. We love the fact that, as we sometimes say, they jump off of things that we only take pictures of. They will do anything. They take risks and chances and want to try the world. We love that about the teen brain to an extent, because that can sometimes lead to harm. And that's where Snapchat is a neurological limbic system curiosity beast. It preys on those awesome attributes of teens in ways that is just so harmful. And the fact that FOMO, this fear of missing out, they want to be connected. That's a very limbic system impulse during the teen years. I've had some say, like, the desire to connect during the teen years is like hunger to a teen. It's that powerful. And so an app that almost monetizes, it creates this digital currency around how fast you get back to somebody through the snap streak and all these things, it is going to override a teen brain and create all kinds of unnecessary anxiety. You've seen it and I've seen it, where just to respond back, like just to check the box and responding back, it's quick, take a picture of the ceiling and then snap. It's just to check the box. That is not relational. So to me, that anxiety component is totally unnecessary. The sextortion component and the nudes part of it is so unnecessary, because the idea and the emotion around sending a nude photo is much more compelling than the breaks that are telling them not to during those teen years. And the fact that Snapchat's MO is it disappears,
right?
It dangles this carrot in front of you that is just too intoxicating to overcome. Like, of course I'm going to send it. It's going to disappear. It feels great. She might send one back. Like, those are just all features and components that are just horrible for young brains. So if there's one that I could just totally eradicate from adolescence,
That would be it.
that would be it. That would be Snapchat. I would give them Instagram before Snapchat. I'll let them watch YouTube before Snapchat. I'll give them TikTok before Snapchat. That is the one that I'm just like, no way. No way.
Well, tell me a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about sextortion. There are still parents that really do not know that that exists or what it is. And I think it's so interesting that of all the apps, that Snapchat is really the one that you just brought up, that this just makes it so easy. But can you just go into a little bit about what sextortion is, but how prevalent is it? Like what are you seeing?
So sextortion, just to describe it for those who don't know it, is the transaction where a young person sends something compromising to somebody else who is then extorted out of fear and pressure to send money to prevent that bad actor from exposing them, sending it to friends, sending it to people in the public and ruining their life, right? So it's extortion, but with a sexualized component often because they've sent a nude or something they shouldn't have. Again, preying on that impulsivity, because it's often done through a fake profile where teen boys are the ones that are over 90% the victims of this. Why? Because if you're a young teen boy who receives an invitation from some perceived, hot person on the other side who will send you something, has built a little bit of trust, and now says, hey, I'll show you a little bit, and then I need you to send something, that middle emotional part of the brain is the only thing making decisions in that teen boy. There's no logic, there's no reason, there's no breaks. It's just all go and no slow. And that's when they make these kinds of decisions. So yes, 92% of the cases during 2023, that's the most recent that I can remember, that were being dealt with by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, it was teen boys being extorted. Suzanne, hundreds and hundreds of teen boys all over the world who have died by suicide because they were so distraught at the prospect of this photo being shared, of this video being shared, which now through AI has been weaponized and scaled in a way that is unimaginable because it looks so real. The person I'm talking to looks so real. And you can have bad actors with like multiple screens all going to the same time, extorting multiple boys all over the place, trying to get one to bite. I mean, these are the elaborate criminal schemes that are being targeted at our teen boys. And Snapchat is definitely a big part of that. Why? Because it disappears and it's so hard to get Snapchat to comply and to send information when this stuff happens. It's heartbreaking. And I know many families who have
It's heartbreaking.
Have lost their sons due to this issue.
So what do you say to parents about that in terms of, is that part of the 10 before 10 conversation? Is this a separate conversation to sit down and really explain what extortion is to a young teen? What is the answer? What's the practical tip on that particular conversation?
Well, we and this may be something that you could share. So we have something on our website, protectyoungeyes.com, which is titled, What is Sextortion? A Prevention and Response Guide for Families. And this walks through a lot of different information, but then at the bottom, it provides 10 steps to prevent sextortion and then 10 steps to respond if it happens. Because I hope that I break the streak, but I'm on 3 consecutive Christmas breaks where a family from my own community has had to be assisted in a sextortion situation, right? How to handle it after it has happened. So to your point on the conversations, right? 10 steps to follow. Remind them that you're safe often, have ridiculously honest chats, parent with calm, 0 technology in bedrooms, no Wi-Fi at night, right? Delay social media, use device control. So it just kind of goes through this list. Now, the have ridiculously honest chats, like I mean ridiculously honest chats. And I'm going to be a little offensive with my language for just a minute, but I hope everybody understands the spirit behind it. So I want fathers sitting down with young sons and looking them in the eye and saying as directly as possible, please don't ever take a picture of your penis and send it to somebody else. Like, whatever word you have to use, whatever directness
Get their
you want,
attention.
whatever you have, there are other words you can use there. You get their attention. And then after that, just, say that kind of the harms that can go with that, like what can happen in the moment is going to feel like the right thing, but dude, just promise me that you are never going to do that thing. And son, I want you to know that if something slips through, we're going to get through this together. Like, that I've got your back, right? So that's ridiculously honest. Like, lay it all on the line. You look at them with all the care and attention, and just let them know what's up. And I think these are the kinds of chats that are missing in too many young teens and teenagers' lives right now, is someone just telling them how it is and being there for them. So that's what I mean by that.
I agree. And I think it goes back to how we started the conversation, is really, these are not necessarily conversations. This was not so accessible when we were growing up. And so you haven't been on the receiving side, maybe, of your parent having to have that direct conversation at those ages. You haven't experienced that. So it's hard to get your head wrapped around the fact that we have to be that direct with our children. It's difficult. But I love the fact that you're being direct about what we need to be direct about, and it's so helpful. I have just a couple of other questions. And would you explain the app Kick? What is Kick?
So Kick is a Canadian application that has been around for a long time. Actually, Kick is kind of one of the reasons that Protect Young Eyes exists, if you can believe it or not. So back in like 2015, there was a young girl here in West Michigan who was the part of a kidnapping scheme that happened through the Kick app. So Kick, for a long time, a direct messaging app, it's rated 17 plus for a reason, just allows you to kind of randomly connect with anybody. It's been a problem and a pedophile's dream for a long time. And so no child, like, that's a zero tolerance app. It's rated 17 plus for a reason. It is adult, and even then it's horrible. Like, just stay out of it. But that's what it is. It's sort of like early kind of versions of social media in the wild, wild west, and it's really never gotten any better. So that is an app that is full of harm that nobody should be using, especially kids.
Okay, great. I know a couple of college kids that have gotten in a lot of trouble using that. A lot of trouble. And so I think parents maybe don't hear about it as often, but it's still out there, and just wanted to kind of clear that up. Okay, I know we need to wrap up here in a minute, but I really want to talk about AI for a second. And you've just gotten back from the White House. Can you share a little bit about AI in general? You touched on it with the sextortion and some of what's happening there, but also AI in the classroom. And just what are you seeing education-wise? What do parents need to be aware of? And then maybe just the call to action on that. I think it's an important conversation.
Sure. I'll use two C words in talking about AI, and that's AI companions and AI in the classroom. So what parents need to know is that if we were concerned about social media and what it was going to do to our kids, then we need to multiply that by about 100 if we're going to think about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is coming faster than anything we've experienced in the past. And by this time next year, Suzanne, we'll know, I'm sort of a science fiction guy, we'll know by this time next year whether we're heading toward a Star Wars-like relationship with technology or a Matrix-like relationship with technology. Those are one of two paths, either one that we interact and they are a benefit to us, unless you're Darth Vader, of course, but you know what I mean. Or we're heading towards one where we're plugged in and we're being used and utilized. And terms of companions, again, connection. Teens want connection. They are wired. Human beings are wired for connection with other human beings. And especially during the adolescent years, where we're asking important questions around purpose and worth and significance. And we are looking for voices to answer those questions. If I'm a lonely child who doesn't have other caring adults answering those questions for me, you better believe that character AI or replica or any of these other AI companions that tell me I'm amazing, that compliment me, that encourage me, that will be there all the time and make me the center of their world. What teenager wouldn't want that? And that's what we need to be having conversations about. This gets into technical things around controlling the App Store, because there are hundreds of these apps that are out there now that we should not be allowing our kids to download apps without our intervention to see what's going on. Again, the goal of the App Store is to download only. That's what they want. But we need to be having these conversations. Last month, Common Sense Media came out with a report that 72% of the just over 1,000 teens that they sampled across the United States interact regularly with companion AI.
Oh,
apps like Character AI and
72%.
So those are companions. These are digital relationships. This is exactly what teenagers want. And we have to be very proactive about having conversations about those. And that's from a relational side. And then from the technical side, making sure that they don't have access to those. No child under the age of 18 should be interacting with companion AI in any way. Just no way.
Yeah, period.
So that's the companion side. The other side in the classroom is, I mean, if you're a parent, I'm guessing that at some point you have felt a little unsettled about the use of technology at school. Let's just all agree we did that really badly. That COVID accelerated all of that. Google was already dumping Chromebooks into classrooms like crazy. And then COVID came along and really made it the only way to do school. They were handed out again like crazy.
Yeah,
and now
that's
we're
right.
stuck with all this technology, and it's not fulfilling any of the promises. It's not fulfilling promises around learning outcomes, around behavior, around anything. Why? Because we took something that was never designed for learning. It was never designed for children. It was designed to connect to the internet. And then we get mad when kids use that thing in school to connect to the internet.
That's right.
That doesn't sound like a kid problem. I mean, the illustration that I use is, I'm 51, so imagine back in the late 80s when I'm in sort of middle school and heading into high school. Let's imagine, Suzanne, that our history books, that 25% of the pages in my history book was dedicated to baseball, video games, and pornography. And every day in class, Mr. Corser, my middle school teacher, just hoped that none of the 25 kids ventured into that 25% content. And it was his job to make sure we did it. And then we take those books home, and parents were never told that that 25% existed, and parents were expected during the 17 hours that they have a child to not have their kid get into that content, right? It's ridiculous what we've done, because that's a Chromebook. That's essentially what a Chromebook is.
That's such a great illustration.
And
so good.
I laugh. I went to conferences for one of my sons, and the teacher looked at me and said, yeah, every once in a while, he gets kind of distracted on his Chromebook. And I just laugh. I'm like, wouldn't you?
Like you think?
I'm not going to say anything to him about that. He is doing the best he can. You have put godlike technology in front of him, and then you're upset when he gets distracted by it every once in a while. I mean, whose fault is that? I didn't say any of this. My filter was keeping that at bay. But I mean, that's essentially what we've done with ed tech. And I use that as a setup for what we are about to do with AI. We are about to recommit all of the sins of educational technology with artificial intelligence. And it's using all of the same promises of better learning outcomes, personalized learning. It's going to right? We all know if COVID taught us something, it was that human-to-human connection is what makes us human. We need that. And so offloading education to zeros and ones and large language learning models, which really, again, the incentives, all the incentives that caused social media to go down the dark path that it did are still the same incentives for artificial intelligence. Engagement, right? And here's the problem with AI is that this isn't just an engagement in a user thing. Suzanne, this is now a geopolitical thing. So
100%.
The push to get AI in the classroom, right? Just last month, we have President Trump putting out the AI pledge that is now incentivizing schools to push AI into K through 12 education. Now, this is good on the surface. I want our children to be AI literate, but I do not want our children using AI. Like there's a big difference between those two things. And I'm afraid, again, the incentives, just like we had incentives to buy Chromebooks, we have now incentives that schools are looking at the next shiny thing, which is get AI in the classroom. And they're going to rush to it, again, without teachers being trained how to use it, without a framework that prevents harm, with large language learning models that are harvesting our children's data and using it for profit. All the same problems are going to be repeated, but at scale. This is what concerns me. That's why I went to the White House. That's why I'm working with the coalition. We have, and I know when you listen to this might be at different times, we kind of have this month of August here in 2025 to submit public comment to the Department of Education around these things, which is what we're encouraging our listeners to do, to make our concerns heard and not only have the voice of Google and Apple and others be the voice that the administration is listening to. This is urgent, and we need to act on this quickly.
I could talk all day. I mean, you are just a wealth of information, just unbelievable tips, incredible facts, your work. This is just great work. And so thank you so much today for being on. Is there any last thing? Is there anything that maybe you're just like, I just want to make sure I say this one other thing or leave parents with this one thought before we wrap up?
Well, it's that even a dad with a degree as an accountant can figure this out. And I think that all of you can too, that each of you listening to this have digital superpowers. And with a few practical things will be on your way. Just take it one step at a time. Between now and next week, just figure out the router. That's it. Like just that thing. I don't want the weight of this conversation, which covered 10 years of work, right, to lead to any kind of paralysis in the individual homes that are listening to this. Take one step, do it with confidence, come to us when you have questions. That's why we exist at Protect Young Eyes, is to help you along the way, step by step, chat by chat. That's why we exist. I would be happy to do that for any of you.
That's great. And they can find you on Instagram at Protect Young Eyes, on social media, and in your website, right?
Yep. Okay. Those are the handles, easy to remember.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for all you're doing and just for all the tips. I'm sure people are going to be seeking you out, and I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's been my pleasure.
Okay, parents, I hope that was helpful. That was a lot of information. I mean, he is a wealth of knowledge and of wisdom. I hope that those practical tips did not overwhelm you, but instead gave you just a step-by-step. I love how he ended by saying, just take the next step. The router, I mean, that is a game changer. So if you can only do one thing, go that route. I think even more importantly is just this conversation around having conversations. And as parents, us getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. The fact of the matter is how he came out of the gate: trust nothing and have conversations. Our children are depending on us to make decisions, to know what we're talking about, and to be really brutally honest with them when it comes to the things that they are likely going to be exposed to. So I just want to encourage you to trust yourself, to trust the Lord. He's leading you to find these resources that are out there. I mean, he has spent 10 years building this, and there's so many tools. So I hope that you'll really look at Protect Young Eyes and some of the other tools that we're sharing throughout the season, and get with your children, have the hard conversations. Parenting is hard. You just have to pick your heart. So you can do it. The Lord is with you. He equips you. You've been called. Get in there, have the conversations, enjoy the growth in relationship with your children, and watch them learn to trust you in ways that maybe you don't even know they will, because you're doing the hard thing. I hope this episode is going to help you parent with purpose, disciple with direction, and leave an intentional legacy.